So Marcie, just to set the stage, do you mind if I tell my worst agricultural joke? It's real quick.
Absolutely. I know I won't be the butt of it, so you go for it.
Well, there looks like there's a lot of professionals in the audience, so maybe you'll appreciate this, but how many lawyers does it take to grease a combine? Only one if you run them through real slow.
I'll be sure to tell my lawyer husband.
Yeah. I apologize to all the attorneys that are out there. We just want to set the stage a little bit about who we are and the greater initiative in the region that's centered around agriculture that we're all a part of. And I guess I want to call attention to the photograph that you're seeing there and maybe explain what that is. That's a fully autonomous planter. It's a 4-row planter. And what's unique about that is compared to conventional equipment, which would be much bigger, much more costly, much more demanding of fuel and other resources to be able to manage, this 4-row planter can operate in conditions that conventional equipment can't do. So, for example, a couple years ago, we had excessive rain throughout the region here. And over about a 2 or 3 week period during heavy planting season, this was the only piece of equipment that was moving around and planting. So a 4-row planter can't compete with a John Deere 16-row planter or anything like that. But if you can imagine several of these units operating simultaneously in the field at a much cheaper rate, cheaper fuel costs, and less labor, and so forth, that's the future of agriculture. The really cool thing about this planter is the person operating it was not on site. They were 2 states away. So think about that in terms of deployment of resources in the future. So what is a regional innovation cluster? We at Ag Launch are fortunate to be a service provider for the Small Business Administration, and we operate the agri-food regional innovation cluster here in the Delta region. That's simply, when we talk about a RIC, that's simply a network of geographically concentrated network of partners and collaborators working to build and maximize resources and to build and scale up innovations and job creation in the region, all around agriculture. It encompasses about 102 counties over 5 states, including the Boot Heel of Missouri that we'll talk about in just a moment. Small Business Administration funds about 16 of these industry regional clusters across the country. Ag Launch actually operates 3 of those regional clusters all around agriculture. Of course, there's other RICs that are involved with other industry sectors as well. So we're also funded in part by the Economic Development Agency, and I like to think of it as, whereas Small Business Administration is helping us to build the horizontal, building all the collaborative partnerships, creating a system where we can connect with ag entrepreneurs in the region and from outside the region and bring them here. The EDA fund is helping us to build the vertical. For example, at Ag Launch, we are building a data lake, an aggregation of data from all of our farmers, so that we can help them better understand and monetize the value of their data. But we're also providing a sandbox for the small businesses, startups, ag tech startups that we're working with, so that they can benchmark their technology, better understand that technology, maybe run algorithms or whatever they need to do. So EDA is helping us to build that kind of platform to support the horizontal that the SBA is helping us to build. So, as a regional innovation cluster coordinator, we have built a coalition of groups to work with, and one of those is the Sykeston's Chamber and Regional Economic Development Agency. So do you want to talk about that, Marcie?
Sure. Something kind of interesting, we're the northernmost, pretty much where cotton can be grown. So when you talk about agriculture, that kind of sets us apart from the rest of the state. About 70% of our whole state's crop production is in southeast Missouri. And when we think about distribution, we're ideally located with the highway system as well as the river, which you guys are familiar with as well. But when we're thinking about capitalizing on our distribution, we know that is great for our farmers. And that was pretty much all I kind of knew about agriculture other than being the #1 industry. So I'm saving some of my talking points for later because I got a little ahead of myself earlier. But I wanted to tell you not only about Sikeston, but also about Sikeston Chamber Economic Development and Tourism. In a small rural area, we're about 16,000 people. It doesn't make sense to do all of those things independently or in silos. So our community leaders about 10 years ago put together Chamber Economic Development and Tourism. And I went through, if you guys are familiar with the Delta Regional Authority's Delta Leadership Institute, after that, I really saw that big picture. No, don't go yet. Sorry, I'm not there.
Okay, sorry.
Don't go there. Saw that big picture and saw what my community leaders were doing and really wanted to be a part of that. So I served as the chamber director for about 5 years and have been doing economic development for about 2, but still, economic development is tourism, is chamber, is like all of it together. So that's what I was trying to show by this slide. You can see we brought a hot air balloon festival to Sikeston, accidentally brought like 13,000 people to our 16,000 people town. I'm not cut out to be a parking person, so, but it really was great. It's more people spending money in our community. What I think we recognized as we were putting this together is we weren't capitalizing on our #1 industry. So that's when we can go to the next slide. So we talked about, let's put together an agri-park. Well, I didn't really know what that meant, and my predecessor, Mike Marshall, he was like, yeah, let's put a sign out there, that'd be great. We have an industrial park in the northernmost part of our community, and then if there's not an industry on that land, we farm it. Well, we've got some available farm, let's put a sign out there. So yes, I'm for an agri-park. What am I gonna do with it from there? And that's really where getting to know Tom and his folks at Ag Launch have helped us not only bring attention to our agri-park, but really make it something innovative, and bring ag technology and a spotlight on Sikeston. So we'll go into that a little bit more, but I'm gonna kick it over to Tom with a quick question. Or no, you wanna go through your slides, yes?
Yeah.
We practiced this.
So you might ask, why build a regional innovation cluster around the MidSouth Delta? And it should be pretty obvious if any direction you go from Memphis, the importance of agricultural production in the region. We're talking about 13 million acres of productive farmland in this 102 county area that we work in. You're talking about $8 billion just at the farm level, not counting the multiplier that goes along with that. You've got major industry suppliers, distributors, and storage facilities centered here. So we are really in the center of one of the most agriculturally productive regions in the world. So one of the challenges we have, though, is we're really good at growing commodities, cotton, corn, soybean, wheat, but we end up putting that on the barge, shipping it out to the world, and then it comes back to us in finished product. So part of our objective here is using technology to be able to energize the farm community, but also build a new innovative platform for being able to diversify to other crops and also to give farmers early visibility on new technologies. So that's some of the challenges that farmers are facing, particularly here in the Mid-South, is the same as farmers are facing everywhere, and that is rapidly changing consumer driven demand. I've been in agriculture for 40 years, and it's always been low prices and high input cost. That hasn't changed. Labor is increasingly an issue, and skill set for labor is an issue in agriculture, just like other industry sectors. You've got an ever-changing regulatory environment and highly competitive markets and a volatile trade market as well. So there's a lot of uncertainty out there. We believe at Ag Launch that through technology that we can help change some of those dynamics in a positive way and bring high-tech jobs and investments associated with ag tech startups. We have a great opportunity in the Mid-South to diversify our agriculture. Ag Launch is a part of a coalition that's working to try to transition some of that traditional cropland to more specialized, nutrient-dense kind of crops that could bring a more of a premium and help us build a better supply chain in the region. If we could just convert only a little bit of that 13 million acres of cropland to more diversified crops, you're talking about $2.5 to $3 billion in additional economic value at the farm level. And again, that you put a 7 to 8 time multiplier effect on that, you can see how that could ripple through the economy here in this region. So we're working with some innovative platforms to try to change that dynamic a little bit. At Ag Launch, we believe that basically at Ag Launch, what we're about is connecting the farmer, the entrepreneur, and the investor, and trying to commercialize new technologies that'll benefit farmers, but also give farmers a voice in that innovation process and a chance for ownership in that process. The way it works now is that typically innovation and technology is not introduced to the farmer until someone's ready to sell it to them. Typically, it comes through large ag corporations who have research and development budgets to be able to develop new products and then market it to farmers. And farmers may benefit from that technology, but they don't necessarily have ownership in that technology. Sometimes that technology works, sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it hamstrings a farmer into one particular system or one particular brand of products or equipment that makes it hard for them to pivot to something more efficient. So we're about bringing the farmer into the innovation process very early and actually partnering them with the entrepreneur to demonstrate and also refine that technology. And by the way, those farmers will then earn equity ownership for their services in those startup companies. So that's the model we're building. We have a diverse network of farmers across the country. The nexus of our membership is right here in the Mid-South. We're proud to say that most of our farmers are here, but we also have a nexus of farmers on the West Coast in Willamette Valley in Oregon, but also in the Midwest, centered around Iowa. And it's through the strength of that platform that we're able to offer ag tech companies a partner with different climates, different soil types, different equipment types, different mindsets that are important for an ag tech company to be able to navigate in today's ag system. We're also about diversity and inclusion at ag tech. About 40% of our farmer network are women and minorities. We think that's important to build an equitable system going forward. And it also has given us the strength of that diverse talent pool to be able to crowdsource our farmers and crowdsource our due diligence on the technologies we work with. We think that's very important. I won't go into this, but over the last 7 or 8 years, we've helped secure several companies secure a number of patents. We've conducted well over 400 field trials with the companies that we have worked with. They've raised capital collectively. Those companies we worked with have raised over $200 million in dilutive and non-dilutive funding. And again, about 40% of our farmers and in many cases the entrepreneurs we working with are historically underserved as well. So let me give you just a couple of test cases and then we'll get right into our conversation. Rantizo is a company that was developed by an ag tech entrepreneur in Iowa. He brought his company and his technology to Memphis, went through our accelerator program. We were able to put his drone spraying business out on the farms in Tennessee and other states through our farmer network. They became the first FAA-approved drone spraying system, licensed system in the country. Not only that, but they also became the first FAA licensed and approved drone spraying company for swarm technology, being able to operate simultaneously multiple units at one time. That company is now operating in 30 states, providing services to farmers. And the interesting thing is, they're operating in Northwest Tennessee through the co-op there, providing valuable services to the farmers in that region, providing high-tech jobs, in some cases, servicing these units in this system for farmers. And they're providing that valuable service, in some cases, to farmers who now have some ownership in that company. That's the model we're trying to build. So it's not like attracting a manufacturing plant to your area. It's more about a distributed, diverse system of economic development that can have some local benefits in many ways. Grain Weevil is a company that we have tested on farms in southwest Tennessee. They've developed a robot to go into a grain silo and level it out to keep a human out of that. One of the most dangerous jobs on the farm is getting in a grain silo and leveling that out. It can act like quicksand and quickly suffocate someone. And there's also moving paddles that can also maim and hurt someone. So they're developing a product that not only is preserving the quality of the grain that farmers have, but it's more importantly, it's keeping them out of the silos and keeping them safe. So that's the kind of technologies we're working with at Ag Launch, and it may be biological products, new genetically improved soil microbes for enhanced production, to robotics, to genetics, to animal disease platforms that can prevent diseases, outbreaks before they occur on the farm. So with that, we're going to get started with a bit of a discussion and help you understand how we at Ag Launch are partnering with Sikeston to kind of spotlight agriculture and the opportunity for ag tech innovation there.
Yes, so my question is going to start for Tom. So I know you were the Deputy Commissioner of Agriculture in Tennessee. TDA was an early investor into Ag Launch as a means to economic development, particularly in rural areas. So can you tell me a little bit about how you made that decision in that role?
So I was fortunate to be at the department at a time where we had some leadership that really had a vision for this. I served as Assistant Commissioner under former Commissioner Julius Johnson, also Deputy Commissioner under Jay Templeton, who's from Southwest Tennessee and an Ag Launch farmer as well, and then current Commissioner Charlie Hatcher. And really fortunate to see the progression of this program. The reason the Department of Agriculture got involved in this area is there was a West Tennessee cotton farmer that designed what is today the modern modular cotton picker. And he designed it with chalk, outlining his design on his shop floor. And he ended up selling that technology to one of the major equipment manufacturers. And it serves as the basis of the modern cotton picker today. And Commissioner Johnson knew about that and said, there's got to be other innovators, ag innovators out there in Tennessee. We need to do more to engage them and support them, build a better front door, but also attract technologies to our state to give farmers better visibility on that technology and build our reputation as a place for innovation. So that's why the Department of Agriculture started that relationship and started putting some seed money into Ag Launch to get it going. So I've just simply been the beneficiary of seeing that progression of the organization and how it's grown. And now that we can begin to point to job creation, and services valuable services back to farmers, it's really rewarding to see that full circle.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I was wondering how a recovered government employee now came to a agriculture startup. So it's really fascinating. We appreciate all that you're doing.
Well, the only other thing I would say about that is in my position at the Department of Agriculture, I got involved a lot in administering our regulatory programs, but one of the things I was most interested in was ag development. And it was during my time at the Department of Agriculture, under our commissioner leadership, that we reorganized our marketing division to focus more. They do a great job on promoting Tennessee produced products, both internationally and domestically, through the Pick Tennessee Products program. But there came a point where we felt like we needed to be more intentional about ag development and business development. So we reorganized the division to identify industry consultants that specialized in certain sectors of the industry to really mine and work with our economic development agency to better identify opportunities for industry growth, both in the production side of the industry, but also in the value-added finished product kind of side of the business as well. And so they're still using that model now, which I think is effective. We also introduced some grants, some small grants for rural businesses to be able to help with value-added production as well, and I think that's been very helpful with our economy. So, Marcie, I think it's my opinion that a lot of communities and a lot of economic developers really want to know, really appreciate agriculture in their community. They understand it's a driver, but many times it's very daunting to know how to make that a part of your economic development strategy. So how have you come to that decision in Sikeston, and how do you view agriculture as a part of your overall economic development plan?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. From the chamber standpoint, and then moving into economic development, I mean, we would have, a farmer's banquet, and our farmers would come, and we'd sort of see them, but they don't see themselves as part of the chamber community necessarily, or the business community. They're not coming to our regular luncheons or anything like that. And why not, when it's our number one industry? And so then as I'm looking into it as from an economic development standpoint, same thing. I mean, why is it our number one industry, yet we're not really doing anything as a community to support them? It's almost like we took them for granted, our farmers and our ag community. But then you look at every single business in my community, and it's somehow tied back to agriculture. So I really didn't know how. I was one of those economic developers. I knew I wanted to do something. I knew it was important, but I couldn't see it. At the same time, the buzzword and where all the money was around entrepreneurship, or entrepreneurialism, entrepreneurs, putting something in that. You need to be doing something in your community. Well, okay, but everybody that I talk to already has a job. So how do I make that connection? And it was really getting to know Ag Launch and their crew to see, oh, this is the role that I play. I connect my producers, my farmers, with startup, technology, and entrepreneurship. So when I think about like generational farmers, everybody has farm families in their communities, right? Well, that is going to get diluted, and that you can't make more land. So what can I do? I know that you come from a farm family. You are working hard all the time. You have a great work ethic. Plus, just like your person who's drawing out designs on a shop floor, they are innovators. They know the problems. They typically solve them while they're out there working. But there wasn't a place for them. There wasn't a place in the chamber. There wasn't a place in economic development. There wasn't a place in Sikeston. So what are they doing? They're going somewhere else. They're probably coming here, coming to Memphis, or they're going to St. Louis because they want to be innovative and they want to be part of this tech drive. Well, what if we can give them a place? So what if we can use our agri-park that is available and just had a really nice shiny sign and connect with somebody like Ag Launch who can bring technologies, bring those innovations so people start seeing ag technology differently. That is so important, even if it's just one, even if it's just one person, one entrepreneur. Do you know that can really change a small town? Additionally, through a program in Missouri, through our chamber and insurance and stuff, I was seeing farmers join the chamber just to get an insurance benefit. So I had a captive audience, but again, what I was doing traditionally wasn't fitting or meeting the needs of the farmers. So I wanted to think of it in a way, how can I give a value add to a farmer or to a producer? And this is the way that I can do that. I can expose them on the front end of technologies, and not only that, but give them an equity opportunity, or more importantly, or what I'm learning now, is just a voice in what happens with it. I've got some really cool farmers in my community who are very excited and want to be a part of the solution. They see that agriculture is going to look different in 20 and 30 years, much different than it did 20 and 30 years ago. But I wasn't giving them a space for that, so they were leaving. Doing that now, hopefully I can give a spotlight on some of my farmer producers that they probably didn't have before, and then also be an innovation hub in Sikeston and do what we do well. What do we do well? Agriculture, collaboration. What do we not do well? Entrepreneurialism. So how about we link those two things and really become great at ag technology?
I think what you just heard is they recognizing that farms are internationally competitive small businesses. And I think you really need to think of them that way, because they truly are. And we've also talked that they're one of the economic assets in your community that are not going to pick up and move very easily. Your farmer that's been there for generations is not likely to move their farm to another state for better tax incentives or something like that. So it is a resource in your community that you can leverage, and we're bringing technology to that piece for an ag tech based economic development strategy. We talked about the Agri Park. Can you talk a little bit more about the history of the park and your vision for it? And I want to say parenthetically, I don't think you're suggesting that every community ought to go out there and invest in an Agri Park. We can demonstrate this model without a fixed site. Our farmers actually become the incubation space for the startups we're working with. So it could be an innovative farmer in your community that we might work with and actually place a technology on their farm. It doesn't have to be a show place like Sikeston's Agri Park. But can you talk a little bit more about the park, how it came to being, and what your vision is for the future?
Sure. So I say this with all the love in the world for my boss, or former boss, but as rural economic developers, sometimes there's not a lot to talk about. There could be some times where you've laid the groundwork, you've got the great site, you're working on infrastructure, and nobody wants to hear about that. So Mike said, let's put together an agri park. I was like, great. What does that mean? I had no idea. But he's an if you build it, they will come kind of people, or kind of person. And that's how we got started, truthfully. Like I said, we have an industrial park. It's got available sites on there. If there's not an industry there, we're row crop farming it. So that's kind of how it got started. Our first kind of introduction to it was working with Lincoln University. They were trying out some hemp, some industrial hemp that they were growing there. And that was great until the entrepreneur that was working on that got sidetracked to something else. So that happens. So then it was like, ooh, now what do we do? And I was like, I don't know. I'm not a farmer. I don't know what to do. So we kind of circled back, and let's be real, like any kind of startup or anything else, we were like, how do we keep the momentum? I'll be honest, Tom, the story ends well, right? Because I'm sitting here with you. There were lots of times that I was like, I'm done with the agri park. This cannot be my top priority. As economic developers, what do people want? They want sites. They want to know what you're doing for site selection and bringing in those big jobs and doing those kind of things. nobody got the whole agri-park thing. And so when you're getting that pressure from your board, it's hard to want to continue with it. But I kept having, it was like every time I was ready to give up, I heard from Ag Launch, and I'm like, no, I see this vision. And if we're not truly embracing agriculture as an economic driver and as economic development and as job creation, no, it's not going to be that big, 80-person shiny new manufacturing facility, but it is a part of our community's future and our community's growth. So that's kind of how that got started.
So let me kind of wrap up. We've only got a couple of minutes left, and I was going to point out that we did 3 things with the Sikeston folks this summer for the first time. One, we brought 3 companies to the Sikeston site. One of those was the autonomous planter that I showed early on. We demonstrated that at the facility. They also have a farmer, a local farmer, who is farming that property for them, and we worked with them in bringing a biological company there to that had a soil additive to help boost with production. We also brought a Canadian company to Sikeston with a technology for early fungal disease detection that we demonstrated there. And then we hosted a field day there. What's been the reaction to local leadership and folks about that?
Yeah, that's when it clicked, honestly. We're the show me state. You had to show us, right? So being able to bring in my farmers and really have Ag Launch there to lead and show the technology that they're doing, and it made sense to the farmers and to our local leadership. It was like, oh, now I get why we've been pushing for this kind of thing. So it really it gave us the legitimacy that I had been craving and wanting, and people saw, oh, there really can be new technology in agriculture. We think, okay, it's beans, cotton, corn, rotate. But we got some innovation there. We're trying peanuts. That autonomous tractor was planting canola. One of my producers, oh, well, that's really interesting. Why canola? What are you doing? And it sparked that conversation that we need around agriculture to truly make a difference.
So we hope in the future to be able to use that agri-park as a showplace, but also use that region and the region's farmers to demonstrate more technologies that we could bring to the marketplace there and integrate them into the system. And by the way, if they are part of our network, go through investment training and all the things that we ask them to do to understand that part of the business, they can begin earning equity in those companies that they're servicing. So that's the Ag Launch model. I will say this, that at Ag Launch, we believe that farmers can and should take control of their future, and we think through technology that they can do that. We're bringing ag technology and innovation to the marketplace, I think, more effectively and efficiently, and with a greater probability of success than most other models, because we are bringing the farmer in the evaluation process very early before it goes to market. And ultimately, we're about building more equitable, farmer-driven food and fiber system in our region. So would love to talk to you more about what we're doing and how we could connect with you and your resources in your community. So thank you. Any final thoughts, Marcie?
No, I was just going to say, I went to one of Ag Launch's pitch days, and if you haven't had the opportunity to do that, I strongly encourage you to. What I found so fascinating and why I think I've gravitated toward this model of ag innovation is because one of the Spornado, I think, that you brought to our community, I think was during that pitch day, so not everybody makes the cut. But what I loved about it was even that week that they were in the boot camp, they slightly changed the way that their thing was made or whatever, because they listened to a farmer who gave them feedback. And so they changed it. So by the time it came up to Sikeston, it was already better than it was in the past. So it's not just, here we're going to give you some money and try out whatever you're doing. It's really involving those producers and involving the farmers so that it's a full circle network that truly I would never be able to create without Ag Launch's help. And it's exciting. I can't wait to see who's going to be who's going to be in their boot camp from Sykeston. It's going to be so fun. So that's what I would leave with that. And if you're in a rural community especially, and you're not looking at agriculture as an economic development driver, please kind of take some time to really think about it, because you're missing that opportunity.